Can you imagine me, like, showing up at the airport, getting off a plane, and you're coming to pick me up at the airport, and I kind of look back, I'm like, Kohai, not sure I believe in these plane things, but...
Podcasts, the 21st Century Radio Show. Two friends were hit by quarantine and found themselves bored in 2020. But they committed the one taboo among content creators. Never start a podcast because you're bored. Will they go mad? Give up? Or finish watching each other's favourite shows? Whatever happens, listen with care. For what could equal the horror of spoilers?
Welcome to the Sin and Violence podcast. I'm Ginger.
And I'm Kara.
And in this show, we will be discussing and doing somewhat daily recaps of the series Life on Mars and the anime Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood.
And from now on, they're not going to be the very long episodes like we had last time.
Not unless we record, our tangents all the time.
I mean, I'm going to try to be good about being a decent editor about that, but yeah.
Oh, okay.
Emphasis on try. So yeah, going forward, we're going to be talking about one episode of Life on Mars and 2 episodes of Fullmetal Alchemist. And today's theme for Life on Mars Series 1, Episode 7, and Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood Episodes 13 and 14 is, oh, he's not a background character after all.
Which is... what's funny to me about this is you saying that it gives me an insight into what you're thinking about Fullmetal Alchemist. Which obviously, because you're coming up with the titles, okay? I'm not the one who's necessarily doing that because writing is your talent and being witty is your talent as well. But when you're saying, oh, he's not a background character, I'm thinking to myself, of course not.
But the funny thing is that's sort of how I was with Ray. And
sure. Well, I wasn't, if only because he's in the main credits, so I mean, could not be totally background.
Yeah, Dean Andrews is right up front, but in terms of storytelling, both of us are coming from having seen our respective stories more than once. I mean, in your case, more than once in many different flavors.
Yes. And
sort of the realization that in my case, I forget the pacing, and we sort of forget pacing in opposite directions, I've noticed.
Yeah.
Just because of flow, because you're going, oh, this is a lot sooner than I thought, and I'm going, wow, this is a lot later than I thought.
Okay, that's pretty funny. Yeah, it's funny. It's also funny that you said that we've seen these multiple times in different mediums, because I'm, also thinking about, well, as I was telling you last night, I'm we're basically at the diverging point with Fullmetal Alchemist. This is where the differences are between the 09 series / manga and the 03 anime series. This is the pinpoint of where the things are totally different.
So this would be when the 03 series came out. This would be about to where the manga had progressed.
Yeah, I would assume so.
Yeah, that's...
Yeah.
The clip from Gintama about there are several ways that an anime can deal with catching up to the manga, and asking you, okay, which of these things is it? And it's just they
diverge so much they can never rejoin ever again.
And so you have to wait until the show is over and make another.
Yeah. It is... One of these days, maybe we'll record this, but I do want to kind of go over the ending of the 03 anime, because it is just crazy different.
Well, I mean, what's going to happen with...
Oh, yeah, I know what you're going to say.
With what we're doing is... If we do 2 Fullmetal Alchemist and 1 Life on Mars followed by Ashes to Ashes, we're going to have about 6. We're going to have about 6 blocks of there being no Fullmetal Alchemist. So that might be a time to go and revisit the divergence in the 03 anime.
Yeah, and I'll make that a 6-part miniseries over our extra episodes.
Yeah, as we're rolling into the end of Ashes to Ashes, where, things get screwy, we can go over the divergences in Fullmetal Alchemist 03, where things get screwy.
Yeah,
Yeah, they'll line up. It'll be great. So,
Alright, so now that we've got that plan laid out, how about we talk about them episodes we watched?
them episodes we watched, yes. So
We're gonna start with Life on Mars.
because we start with the violence, even though the title is Sin and Violence, because whatever.
Sin and Violence sounds better than Violence and Sin.
It's,
So last episode was, as you basically said, it was Ray becomes not a background character anymore.
Right. This was, the short version is there was a cell death, and Sam was trying to uncover whose fault it was and why it happened, while the rest of the department played very, very defensive on it. And then sort of the upshot of Sam's discovery versus Jean's judgment on it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And again, this is where we see Ray go from standing behind Jean's shoulder and chewing gum and punching people when told to.
Chewing gum sarcastically.
Yes, very much so. He is very quiet. I keep forgetting how much Ray is backloaded in Life on Mars. Because he has a handful of things, and Chris is very much more in the forefront.
Mm-hmm.
You see a lot more of Chris early on, but, up until then, Ray, he pretends to be sick so he can go to the football game, or he arrests a guy on suspicion of cattle rustling. He has a couple of moments, but...
But so far, his main thing has been, to me, in my opinion, looking aggressively 1970s.
Oh, very much so.
He's an aggressively 1970s cop.
Very. I mean, he... out of everybody, he really is the one who just looks like they pulled him out of a genuine 70s cop show. But, yeah, we sort of start to see his... a bit of his motivation here, a bit of what he's about. Early on... Mainly, he just didn't like Sam, and Chris explained that Ray was up for the promotion to detective inspector before Sam magicked in from wherever, from the modern day to wherever he is now, and thus there's been a resentment there. And in this episode, we see that he's very driven by not just wanting to be recognized, but really wanting to be recognized by Jean. He's like, I wanted you to be proud of me, I wanted to do the things that you taught me to do, and sort of...
And that doesn't really... The thing is, okay, actually, I think... So that's the rest... That we have the basic plot laid out. And
right, yeah.
What ended up happening after we finished the episode is we got into a discussion about... We got into a discussion about it. I would say about two particular things. And I'll start with the one about, which is basically the morality of what ended up happening in the episode.
Mm-hmm.
And because you were saying to me, well, because, at the end, near the end or at the end, Sam they find out that there had been a cassette tape recording of what went down, because everybody else was playing coy about it or lying, and Sam had to dig to the bottom of why everyone, what was the truth, basically. And he finds a recording, and on that recording, it finds out that Ray had given their jailed guy cocaine! Cocaine! Jean loved drugs, sorry.
Oh, no.
No. But, and then everyone who's listening, everyone walks into the room, and everyone is going, Andy's saying, well, it was, I had to listen to my superior officer, and that, so it's kind of my fault. And Phyllis is saying, well, I fell asleep, so it's kind of my fault. And then Ray says something like, I was doing what you taught me to Jean, right?
So it's kind of your fault.
Yeah, it's kind of your fault. And then Jean is like, well, I'm responsible for all of you, so it's... I'm shouldering the burden of responsibility. And it was interesting because I was kind of, not super satisfied with that ending. And the thing is, I felt so much like Sam in that moment where I wasn't really happy with that. And, well, yeah, number one, the thing is that on a meta scale, none of these people are probably going to leave because they're all in the main credits, so they're probably not going to be fired.
That's the other thing, is you kind of have to metagame, because this isn't an anime where next episode they're going to just, tidily cut out whatever character died and pretend nothing happened in the opening
or
credits.
Openings and endings make no difference, because someone who's not in the show for 30 more episodes can be in the opening song. So yeah.
Right.
But I wasn't, and then the consequences, Ray gets demoted, which is supposed to be a punishment, but I'm sitting there I don't feel like it was a punishment. And I also didn't kind of like this whole thing where where everyone was shifting the blame elsewhere in a way. Ray especially, I thought, shifted the blame to Jean, whereas Phyllis and Annie owned up to, like, their... No, wait, let me rephrase this. Phyllis said, it's my fault I fell asleep. I think she was the only one that owned up to it, whereas Annie was like, well, I had to listen to my superior officer. And I was like, that's not really a good defense. And then Ray says, well, I just was wanting to make you happy, or I was following what you taught me to Jean. And I wasn't happy about this, but then in our discussions, what it really came down to was, that's real life, though. And you're not, like, I think it's, I'd even mentioned that Sam was kind of annoying in that regard, where Sam is trying to be very by the book and blah, 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 and with his 2006 morality.
Yeah.
And it's very annoying, and yet, when you're thinking about real life, when you've been in workplaces, or, say, you've been in school group projects, that is what happens, and so I'm not going to be mad at the show for portraying that, because obviously that's just what happens. And sometimes you are in these situations, and that's what happens, and you have to own up to the fact that justice isn't served all the time.
Yeah, and the thing is, the thing I really take away from it is the show, and I talk about this a lot, that you can tell writer intent from, actually looking at the story as a whole as opposed to specific things within it one at a time. The show agrees with you. That's the thing, is, Gene lays down the thing where he is like, you're demoted, you're just going to, you're going to look after the stationery cabinet, and that's it, we go on. And Sam is just like, what the hell? No.
Because I think Sam is like me, which is basically, I was telling to you, like, when you watch murder trials and the murderer is, oh, I'm so sorry, I regret it, I take it back.
This isn't who I am.
This isn't who I am. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I know what you're referring to. But, like, you're like, but that doesn't matter, because what happened. Like, it doesn't matter your action happened. Or your inaction. Like, that happened. And so, again, that's when you're feeling like Sam. And, I mean, I would also say, in addition to compounding these feelings, that you're also talking about a police procedural. So there's that added weight where you're like, these are the cops. And, although there was that funny thing at the end, we both were joking about it, where Sam was like, this is why 19 out of 20, or 1 out of 20 prisoners is innocent. And you're like, well, that's a 95% success rate, which is actually pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, that's right. It's very much the mentality of the two times the two characters, because you have Sam, who is like not a single thing, not a single one. If we fail, a single person, we have failed. And I think to some degree Gene would agree with that, but he would rather take a 95% over a 0.
Yeah, no. And again, you're talking, this is a bigger morality question anyway, so it's yeah, and it is and the thing, I think what you end up with is you end up with not an answer. You end up with Gene's point of view and Sam's point of view, and they're both valid points of view, and there is no definitive answer.
I think I would not like the show nearly as much as I do if one of the characters was the always right one.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
They're both, they both have things to learn. They both have to admit things. The other thing that again, these are all things I'm saying within the context, not from a writing standpoint, from a, interesting standpoint. And again, things that I rewatch is, we look at Sam, we see that he takes this tape that pretty much damns the majority of the department. And he does what I think anyone in the year of our Lord 2020 would do or ask to have done, which is he takes it to the top and he is like, dude, here. This is what happened. It is all on tape.
Right.
This needs to be addressed and this needs to be listened to. And it's like, on the one hand, yeah, that would be the absolutely difficult, on this side of things, moral thing to do. On the other, was Sam doing it because it was what he believed was the right thing to do? Or was Sam doing it because he believed it would break the game and let him go home?
Oh yeah, that is right.
That is where Sam is so interesting. That is where Sam is incredibly interesting as a character, and where whatever view you have of the show at any given point is going to inform what you think of Sam.
Yeah, and let me just put it out there. I do think that whatever the end game ends up being, it'll definitely change my perspective on certain things, or it'll give me more insight into certain things. So you're saying this, and I go, oh yeah, that's right. Like that's also a thing at play, which we saw in the next episode preview. Like, oh yeah, that's right, that thing going on. But
Yeah, the question is, this isn't just, as far as we know, in, season 1, episode 7, this isn't just, man goes back to the 70s and tries to fix it. There's more going on there. And, every moment, you have to ask yourself, does Sam believe these people are real? Number one. What is that conception going to do to his behavior towards them? And is he correct? And those are all important questions. And the thing is, you can look at the show at any number of ways. You can look at it, you can look at it with Endgame in mind, and that's why this is a good replay value show. You can go back and you can get little nuances. But when you're watching it the first time and all you have is your own information, you got to ask yourself, why is Sam doing what he's doing? Would he treat these people, would he talk to Jean or I think of Annie a lot. Would he talk to Annie this way if he had absolute proof one way or the other?
Okay.
Yeah,
and so there's that, and then I think the other thing, just as an episode note, and this is actually not even like a morality question. It's just like a one thing we were discussing was. Sure. You were saying, like, Ray is very backfilled, and I think that was also part of the thing that was, like, it took me a little bit to get into the episode and really believe it, was because Ray hasn't really done a whole lot. So I don't know him. Yeah. I really don't know him very much. And you could say, well, Chris hasn't done a whole lot. And I go, well, yes, that's correct, but also Chris has been actively portrayed very quickly and very, very well. That this sort of, like, weird Kohai senpai relationship he has with Sam.
He's adorable.
Yeah, and so I like Chris, because I know more of Chris. I do think there's like a slight fault going on. There's a slight fault where just that Ray didn't really do anything until now, which, so I'm hoping that in the future I get more about Ray, but there's that line Jean says where Ray has done so much for this department, he's brought so many in, and I was like, he has? Like, I just said that he has, because I haven't seen that, and that's just, it's... when you finally pointed out to me that Sam is in every scene of the show, because it lends to the...
He is.
I get it. Oh, that makes sense. Why? When you mentioned that, then I also brought up, I question, Ray has done a lot, but then I also, okay, I do understand that in the show, the structure of the show, it probably is difficult to try and develop all these random characters, and you need to have Sam in the scene in order for the whole thing to work. So... That is what it is, I guess.
Part of me, in retrospect, wants to play writer's devil's advocate, because on the one hand, I agree with you. It did come out of nowhere, and it could have been a more solid thing. There are a couple of lines that could have been thrown around that could have made that a little more solid.
Play devil's advocate. Bring it on.
Play devil's advocate is... You gotta wonder when Jean says, well, he's collared more people than ever in this department, how do we know that Sam also, like us, wasn't going, well, how do I know that?
Let's revisit this in about 2 weeks, and I'll get back to you about it.
Exactly. Yeah, no, from a technical writer's standpoint, I agree that if I had... and I'm talking this way about about grown-ass men who have paid careers, and me as an indie, but, So I'm speaking very out of turn here. We accept that if this had been someone writing a short story for me, I would have asked them to put something up front. Put something at the front of the story, even if it's a throwaway line, just something that drops,
just builds it slightly,
drops home for
just
us.
A crumb.
There's a passing reason to believe that something happened off screen to make this observably true.
So with all that being said, have you is there anything that you noticed on a second watch that we haven't covered yet?
Oh gosh. Something that I'll have to go into much later is turns of phrase. And again, I can't say what they are because
let's go.
But once once we get to the very last episode, I've actually started in a notepad taking down tiny turns of phrase that once we get to Endgame, I'm just going to drop these little phrases to you again.
All right. Are we talking Life on Mars Endgame or Ashes to Ashes Endgame?
We're talking Ashes to Ashes Endgame.
Geez, that's a far Endgame. I don't like that.
Sorry, man.
I do not appreciate these long things here, I say, when we're watching a 65 episode anime series.
I was about to say. let's hang on here. But no, one thing I do recall is that Ray doesn't. I sort of get this. No matter how many times I've seen it, I just sort of forget. Because once I've seen the whole show, I think of, okay, I've seen Ray this much. And then when I get back to rewatching it, Ray is there, and I'm like, oh, it's Ray. Hey, Ray. And so I don't really register that he's not doing a lot. Because he's there, and I can see him, and I know who he is. So when I have a second person going, oh, this came out of nowhere, I'm like, shoot, you're kind of right, actually. One thing I really, really notice more and more is that, well, I mean, I knew this already, but I just get to see it. Annie deserves to be treated so much better. Just the one line that pains me, and I knew it was coming. Like, I saw the scene, and I was like, oh, shit, he's going to say that thing. Was the thing in the locker room where he's like, Annie, it's not your fault. And she's like, no. Like, he came in to comfort her, and she's like, oh my God, dude, what? Like, I know you're blaming yourself, so it's Sam and Annie being on very different social standings when it comes to how to talk to each other in a department. And it's like,
I just took that as, once again, Sam is one of those more things of, Sam, you think you're right because you're from the future and stuff, but guess what, buddy?
Yep. No, I also love a good fight, and I had forgotten that an entire locker gets thrown in that fight. Just wham, there it goes. I'm like, yes. One thing I did not know until, because right now there is a weekly group rewatch going on, and now we are officially ahead of it, so I can tweet from it again now. The episode prior to this, which was the hostage situation, that was not going to be episode 6. It was originally going to be sort of a speed takeoff with Annie driving a bus, but there was just apparently no way to film it. Like, there's like, we don't have the resources for this. Okay, you guys have 2 weeks to write a new episode. And so we got the hostage one that had sort of a smaller set and everything. And I kind of, the answer is probably no, but I kind of wonder, would they have slowly been building up Ray a bit in that episode? And the answer is almost, I don't know, but that's a curiosity that comes to me, that we suddenly have a heavily Ray-centric episode out of nowhere, and I go, were they stepping him up in the episode we never got? And that's a sacrifice that was made, but no way of knowing. So yeah, that's where we are. And then the next episode is the final episode of series 1, because they are in 8 episode runs, which is weird, but I'll take it. So yeah, we start to get, one thing I will say about these shows is, even though it's a long game, when you get to the end of a season, you get something. They're not just, it's not going to be like some shows I've seen where it's like, well, it's the season finale and we've given you nothing, come back next year. They do give you something at the end of every season. Okay, well, I'm gonna remember that. Gonna jot that down. So with our violence block wrapped up, we can move on to our sin block. Our sin block. So the last things we watched for Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood was episode 13, Beasts of Dublith, and episode 14, Those Who Lurk Underground. Those 2 episodes basically are, we left off previously where Azumi told the Elmark brothers that she also committed a big sin, and so we're still there. And now in episode 13 and 14, they actually do pretty much go together, where it's, Izumi has expelled the Elric brothers as her students because she disagrees with their decisions. I think more so to join the military than the other thing. So then they decide, well, let's go and we'll go talk to our teacher now as like equals as opposed to being pupils. And they're hanging around doing all this stuff. And then one day, as Alphonse is outside sweeping the dirt, because that's what you do, he gets a note tossed to him. And what transpires is he goes and meets with some strange people who, one of these strange people is a lady who jumps inside, remember, his empty suit of armor with his soul attached to it.
And she wiggles around and kind of holds him hostage, and he gets taken to this underground thing and called the Devil's Nest. I'm not sure if it's a bar or what the deal is with that place, but it's called Devil's Nest, so it's very subtle.
They had a little matchbox, so I feel like it's a bar.
Probably a bar, yeah. And there they meet Greed, and I very, very, very briefly touch on the homunculi, who are characters in this series. Greed, they all have these Ouroboros tattoos. That's how you know when someone's a homunculus. So they meet Greed, and Greed is there and saying, I want to know your secret to immortality. That's what I want. He's Greed. He wants things. And so part of what he wants is an immortal, I don't want to die, and you have the perfect body. And what he reveals is his gang of people are all chimeras. Now, the last time we experienced chimeras, it was a horrible scenario. It was Nina
slightly.
and Alexander being turned into a dog thing. So we had that last time. But all these people are chimeras, and, Alphonse is like, that's crazy, no one can do this. And Greed basically lays it out for him, saying, like, oh, there's a bunch of shit you don't know about, kid. Which is true. I mean, like, this is how the whole series plays, which is like, it's funny. It is funny because, the Elrics are living embodiments of things that shouldn't be possible, and yet they're also like, no, there are still more impossible things, and you're like, maybe stop saying things are impossible, because as we have learned, that is not true.
Yeah.
And so Edward finds Alphonse. He gets tracked down, and he ends up in a fight with Greed. Greed, one of his special super duper powers, because if you're a homunculus, you get super duper powers. It is like the theory that Luke Westaway of Outside Extra has about dinosaurs, which is dinosaurs are pitched to little kids as having a superpower. And that's why we like dinosaurs. And so, like, every homunculi is like a dinosaur, and they have superpowers, and they're really cool that way. So Greed, he can turn his skin into a hardened carbon, and so he calls it the ultimate shield. So,
Sure,
he and Ed get into a fight, and Ed can't land any blows, but Greed has said to him, oh, I have a human body. And so Ed, and this is where the science part of alchemy comes in, Ed uses alchemy to turn the shield into actually, like, a very brittle carbon, I believe is kind of what he's doing there. The brittle form of carbon. I didn't do really good in chemistry, and that was a very long time ago for me, so I really don't remember these things very well. They get into a fight, and he gets all punched up and bleedy, and everything seems to be fine. And meanwhile, Alphonse and the Chimera gang have snuck off to the sewers. Well, as this is going on, the Führer King Bradley, who is like the head of the country, he has so far been this kind of goofy, kindly, old military man dude we've seen a few times. He shows up with Armstrong in tow, so we get to see more Armstrong. Hooray!
Yay!
Yeah, and he has all these other soldier dudes, and they just go ape shit ham on clearing out this place. And Azumi has also showed up, and she also gets into a fight with Greed, and because Ed was about to die bleeding out, so we can't have that happening quite yet. In the sewers, they're getting away, and then Führer King Bradley catches up to them. And King Bradley has, like, he's loaded with swords. Like, what's the guy's name from One Piece? Zoro, of course, from One Piece.
Yeah.
He only just didn't have a sword in his mouth. Otherwise, it would have been exactly, Zoro from One Piece. Otherwise, he has, like, 6 swords on him. And he's like, hello, Greed. And you're going, like, wait a minute, why do you know who Greed is? And he and Greed get into a fight. And King Bradley has an eye patch. And I'm thinking, kind of, oh, I love guys with face scars. Well, the eye patch gets cut off, and it gets revealed that his eyeball under there also has a homunculus tattoo. So King Bradley is also a homunculus.
Because of course he is!
And I remember saying to Kara, I was like, oh, I didn't know this reveal got revealed so early. We're at episode 14.
So we had one background character who jumped to the front very early, and one background character who jumped to the front surprisingly late this night of watching.
Yes. And they get into a fight, and he kind of defeats Greed, and Alphonse does not learn that King Bradley is a homunculus this whole time. King Bradley kills the other Chimera guys. Al still has one of them, the woman who's like, I don't know if it was explained, but she's part snake Chimera, which is why she's all wiggly, and do all that stuff. King Bradley's like, are you okay, Alphonse? And Alphonse's like, yeah, I'm fine. And King Bradley goes, are you sure? And he just sticks a sword in Alphonse and kills a person inside Alphonse. So Alphonse has experienced lots of trauma.
He does not deserve any of this.
No, but what happens is blood gets on his soul seal there, and he flashes back to when his body was taken away in the alchemic ritual when they were trying to get their mom back, and he sees truth, which is what Ed saw truth and remembered seeing it, which is why Ed can do transmutation without we can just clap his hands to do it. Azumi can do the same thing. Alphonse does not remember it yet, so that's why he was still he still had to draw alchemy symbols, but now he has seen truth and he remembers it now. So they're trying to figure out, okay, well, we're going to kind of go from here and see what we can learn from this. So, Alphonse has to go through having someone killed in him. That happens. But more importantly, at the end of the episode, we are taken to, oh gosh, where are we taken to? We're taken to some kind of underground lair, and King Bradley has brought greed, and all the homunculus are gathering there. We see lust, we see envy, we see gluttony, we see... Which one is he? He's wrath. He's wrath. King Bradley is wrath. And then we have greed, and then they show shot to some dude who, to me, I'm going, oh, it's the narrator. There's been a narrator to the introduction of the episode so far, and also the next episode previews. It's narrator guy who also looks like somebody. And
yeah, I was like, hey,
Greed's tied up to a slab, and Greed gets dunked into a pit of molten lava. And Greed gets killed, basically, and the essence of Greed is sucked back into mysterious guy, and that's where the episode ends. Kara, what are your thoughts? There's lots to cover in this episode. Again, that was only 2 episodes. There's a lot of ground to cover.
Yeah. It's, so I had been wondering about sort of Al's experience with the truth for a bit, because I was like, yeah, he's clearly and there had been a span of talking about with Izumi talking about that, but also seeing this dude just for reference, we're watching the dub of Brotherhood, and I will probably be going back and watching specific scenes from the original, because I want to hear the actors play them, but like for this we're watching the dub, and it's like King Bradley with his Werther's original voice.
He does. He has a fantastic voice where it sounds so kindly and so like Pepperidge Farm, remember? He has a voice that makes you feel nice and at ease. And then he had some moments this episode where he's just like that deep graveling. You're like, oh god, he's gonna kill me.
He was played by Ed Blaylock, who passed in 2017. I am not as much of a dub watcher as others, but he sadly do not. He was Sengoku in One Piece. He's done a lot. He's done stuff for Case Closed. He's done stuff for video games. So yeah, he's been around, but it's not like he hasn't played like 6 characters in. Actually, I stand corrected. He has played like 6 characters in Dragon Ball Z, but not like 6 protagonists in Dragon Ball Z.
Right.
Yeah, but he really is just fantastic, because he really did turn on a dime there. The cognitive dissonance of hearing his voice while this was all going down messed with me, and it was great. Yeah. I also, one of my favorite moments in these episodes was Izumi just like when she busts in.
Gosh.
And Greed is, or Envy. No, Greed.
Greed, yeah.
I don't know. There's a bunch of them. And Greed.
There are.
and
have you noticed a theme? Have you noticed a theme with them?
There's at least 7, probably more. And
I will stop. There are 7 because guess what they're named after?
Yes.
Yeah.
Speaking of sin, but when Greed is like, what the hell are you? She's like, I'm a housewife.
Oh yes, yeah. That was like my thing about glazing over these episodes is also like I'm losing the best line, which is Azumi kicking down the door and she punches Greed into a wall, and he's like, "Who are you?" I'm a housewife.
Izumi is a hero. She is amazing, and I really understand Ed and Al a lot better now, knowing that was their teacher. It's like, oh, no wonder they just kick the shit out of each other for fun. Okay.
Yes.
That... Yeah, gotcha. But I remember I saw this episode and I'm like, oh, the secret real story is starting. I see.
Yeah. And again, like, this is one of those weird things to me where I think as I was saying, I'm like, yeah, this is where the things diverge. We're officially diverged. Like, Azumi is basically the diverging point. When she shows up into the story, her backstory is different. There's some things that are the same, but, like, it's like, there's just something totally different that is never into the '09 anime. It's only exclusive to the '03 anime.
Huh.
And, you know, like, actually, I mean, like, what's funny is that the homunculus are, half of them are the same in the '03 anime, and half of them aren't. So that's kind of actually really interesting, is if you were kind of like me, where I was collecting the manga, and then I kind of fell out of it, but when if you're watching the anime, and you're like, well, I recognize these three folks, and then some other ones show, and you're like, wait a minute, who were you? And it's like there's the real shock value of all that all over again. Like, oh my god, like, King Brat, what the fuck? Like, so that's, kind of an interesting thing. But yeah, we're officially diverged, and we're only 14 episodes in, and there's a long way to go. But this is where the real plot is kicking in. Because, like, next episode, we're getting introduced to characters who were never in the '03 anime, period, but who are very integral to the '09 anime plot. So yeah, that's starting to happen now.
I really do kind of... I live for those moments in anime. I've watched a lot of shows along those lines. Generally, in my viewing, you will find that I tend to watch shows where you're just puttering along for a while, and then all of a sudden someone slaps you in the face with the real plot. I enjoy stories like that.
Yeah.
So I'm just kind of like, oh, sweet, here we go. Because, and I like seeing, you said before that, like, everything ties back together, and that's another thing I like, is I like slow burn shows where you have to go back and go, oh, that was that, and that was that. I'm already seeing that, I mean, that horrible from a morality standpoint, Nina and Sho Tucker episode, it's like, oh, that's already had its payoff in the main plot now. I see. Oh,
yes, yeah, because Alphonse remembers it, and
it's
that plays back, yeah.
It's like, oh, we had to see this horrible, disgusting thing so that when it came up that someone actually managed it,
And apparently has been for a while.
It has been for a while. Yeah. So, already seeing how things are coming together. Boy, that girl, like, climbing into the armor freaked me out.
Oh. The animation is super just, like, it's just like,
I did not think that I could ever feel for a suit of armor getting invaded, and yet here we are. Like, it's very, and along the lines of, No Fear Chibi.
Yeah.
When she pops the helmet open and his little face is just, ugh.
Yes, Alphonse, like, Nico face, because this is what he does when he's that way.
I still love the No Fear Chibi, but, the other thing.
Yes.
And I know it's gonna come back around because I've seen enough anime to know this. Bradley's son, who's like, someday I hope I can help you, Dad. And I'm like, well, shit.
Yeah.
No, I've seen shows. I know it. You're either going to be an experiment or a villain.
Yeah, you're just like, I don't know what's gonna happen.
I have one of two theories on the son. He's either going to end up Nina'd, or... Except I feel like we would have heard about it if he ended up Nina'd.
Okay.
But it's still out there that, like, something experimental sin will happen to him, or he is going to become a villain in his own right.
I was thinking of the John Mulaney line right now, which is just like, you hope something happened here. You hope it was a miracle. It probably wasn't.
That's literally the show. And the other thing that keeps
we have to rename the podcast now.
the other thing that keeps coming around, and I'm never over it, is whenever, like, Ed or Al is like, well, by golly, I'm not a big believer in God. And I'm like, you saw God.
You saw God. That's just, oh, I know. And I've not complained, but I've brought this up to you where it's like, we're not big. He said in the Miracle at Rush Valley episode, which is the one where they birth a baby, like, Ed says, we're not very big believers in God. And it's just one of those things where you're like, how?
It's like, can you just imagine? Not only have they seen God, they got their powers of alchemy from this experience.
This is true.
Can you imagine me, like, showing up at the airport, getting off a plane, and you're coming to pick me up at the airport, and I kind of look back, I'm like, Kohai, not sure I believe in these plane things, but...
I'm not sure I believe in planes. I'm not a big believer in planes, but maybe I should believe in them for this trip.
Yeah, basically. Oh my god.
One of my favorite, my favorite descriptions is basically Edward is the every edgy 15-year-old atheist on the internet.
Just getting the shit kicked out of him by God.
Getting the shit kicked out of him by God. Yeah, exactly.
Oh boy.
So, that's a thing.
I think the other thing about this week is there was a lot of sin in our violence, and there was a lot of violence in our sin.
Yes.
Because we had the big fight with Bradley and the chimeras and all that. So that was the violence in our sin. And then we had,
we had basically a murder hushed up in our violence, which is it's a very big sin.
Yeah, we had cell death caused by Ray, like, forcing cocaine on a guy with a weak heart, and then being like, none of you talks about this.
Exactly, yeah.
So we got a nice bit of sin and violence crossover there.
Yeah. And I'll just say, as far as anything I had kind of noticed on my rewatching of this is, again, I just go back to the fact that, this happens a lot sooner than I thought it did.
Yeah. Well, how many episodes was the original 03?
Is either 50, 51, or 52. I think it might have been 51.
It's not that much shorter.
No.
And it's covering...
arguably more ground.
Yeah.
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 So yeah, and also we had a reveal. I really want to know your quick opinion about this. We had a reveal at the end of the episode. You were making faces and making noises through our text chat.
Uh-huh.
So, like, what were your thoughts going on there?
You mean during the little homunculus gathering?
Yeah, in the homunculus powwow.
My first thing was, oh dear, oh no, oh my. And then my second feeling was, you know what? Of course this would be like this. It's... I still think we're still so early on that anything can mean anything. Mm-hmm. And also, we have seen the homunculi disguise themselves as other people.
Mm-hmm.
So I can't say anything for absolute sure, but the fact that they're calling him father, mm-hmm. and the fact that, he... the timing of everything, I'm like, this might not be this, but they're sure playing it like it is, and so they're either playing me or it really is this, and it's like, that's interesting. Mm-hmm. That's my main thing is, boy, that's interesting, and considering how people behave in this show, in the couple of directions it can go, I am perfectly willing to believe either one.
Okay.
Mm.
Yeah, this is basically, I think, like, that whole thing. And in particular, you're like seeing them just basically kill Greed, and I think that's kind of like, it kind of throws you for a loop where you're just like, wait a minute, I thought they were they were allies?
No.
So it's very confusing.
Oh, this is like our good old school villain teams.
Yeah,
where it's like, look, if you fuck it up, you're gone.
Sure, yeah, and so it's just one of those. It's like an interesting thing to try and figure all that out and figure out the dynamics of all these and how how characters are playing, and because part of the thing that they also said at the end, because I forget about these things, is like King Bradley shows up there because he has Greed, and the other homunculi are like, who's the new guy? Because and so you're learning, I guess King Bradley is a new guy.
Yeah.
So it's you're like, oh, okay, like what does that mean, and kind of the confusing things about that. I will admit that part of these things is, again, I forget about things, and so I watch it going, oh yeah.
Oh yeah, no, that's the fun of like it being a while between rewatches of a thing. You get those little surprises all over again.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's the dynamic of that group. It's like, well, you have related names. I just kind of assume that you were together. Now,
Right.
Granted, killing each other off does not preclude that, because these are anime villains.
Sure.
And that's a proud old tradition of, hey, I will happily set my underlings against each other if it leads to better work, and if
Yeah. Right.
But this seems to be there's another dynamic. You're watching Lust and Gluttony, and you're like, okay, these are at least mini bosses, is where your brain is, and then we're like, oh, I don't even know the dynamic here.
Right.
I'm not even gonna guess.
Yeah, you're like, I'm not gonna try.
Because clearly they're not even sure.
Right.
They're like, who the hell is this? So yeah, I would say.
Yeah. So I think we can wrap it up with our favorite sin and violence moment.
Yeah.
I'm gonna give this the very obvious thing in Life on Mars. My favorite violence moment was the locker fight between Sam and Ray. But because of a thing I said to you, because I think I'm very funny apparently, and it was like I observed this, which was I am always amazed and reminding myself of how much crotch thrusting is involved in like real physical fighting.
Oh yeah.
Because that's what your weight is, and I get that. But I was like watching them fight, and I'm so used to seeing like dynamic anime fighting where they kind of swing around at each other, but like real fighting involves kind of lots of grappling and wrestling around and not necessarily just punching each other. So that was my favorite moment, was just observing the weird fight scene because of what it was.
And I really do appreciate like this just, okay, all we've seen is he's just been sitting in the background disliking Sam loudly for 7 episodes, and now we're gonna go somewhere with it. And again, just seeing that locker just whing, like out it goes. That's beautiful. that's a thing of beauty. Best sin moment. Oh my goodness, there's so much sin.
I'm not sure about like the quote unquote best, but
biggest?
I think the one that got me the most was Bradley killing I think her name is Marta in Alphonse's suit of armor.
I think when he wakes up and you just see that
reveal shot where he's open, like his chest is open and it's just blood.
And it's like, oh, we thought it would be better to get her out of you before you woke up. I feel that's where my brain went. When you said the sin moment, my brain flashed to that image. And it's like, oh.
Yeah, I flashed to like the thinking about like the stabbing and the dying, and Alphonse kind of gets knocked out because when the blood gets on his soul seal, he kind of like flashes to truth, and he kind of just basically passes out from it. And when he wakes up again, he's been rescued and has had a dead body drug out of him.
Yeah. So yeah, that would be that for these episodes.
All right. Sounds good.
So next time we are going to wrap up season 1 of Life on Mars, and I don't know what we're gonna do with Brotherhood, but
we're gonna meet characters who were never in the O3 anime.
Woohoo! So we're going to travel into a whole new world of plot points.
Correct.
All right.
New plot points.
All right. So.
Well, this was the Sin and Violence podcast. I'm Ginger.
And I am Kara.
And this was Sin and Violence.
the podcast of equivalent exchange. And some point, we're going to just stick that landing.
Yeah, we are. Eventually. Maybe.
Just not today.
In like 3 weeks.